Hello, Bournemouth fans, and welcome to our first transfer show. This show is going to be regular content throughout pre-season. I've got Jon Spark with me. We're going to show you how this type of content is going to work. You can get involved in the comments, like and subscribe. Jon, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Kirk. Nice to be back on after a little bit of a extended break.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about the Bournemouth Retained list first of all after that season was completed. We're promoted to the Premier League. Then we'll be talking about the rumours. There's a lot going around at the moment, Jon. And then we're going to be talking about what's going to happen on these shows when we do a done deal, because there's going to be ins and outs, I'm sure of that, but we're going to have a bit of fun with it as well, Jon. And it's going to be a very busy pre-season for Bournemouth. We're going to want to try and compete in the Premier League.
Absolutely, and I think, I don't think there are many Bournemouth fans that would say that the current squad is enough to keep us up at the moment. I'm sure there'd be some that would do their best to argue, but I think right now we're definitely short in certain positions. We'll be coming on to those that we've let go of, obviously, so we need to fill those spots. But as any newly promoted side comes up to the Prem, you have to spend money to give yourself the best chance. It's just about how far the club goes, and hopefully we don't go absolutely mad like Fulham did last time Parker came up.
Absolutely. Right, let's take a look at that Bournemouth retained list. Professionals released was Brennan Camp, Ryan Glover, Karan Brown, Luke Nippard, and Gary Cahill, aged 36 and a half, maybe 37 now. And loan players to have returned back to their parent club is Freddie Woodman back to Newcastle, Nat Phillips to Liverpool. Talk a little bit about him more in a moment. Ethan Laird, Todd Cantwell and Leif Davis. There's also some scholars that have been released, and some have had some options exercised, like Genesini, Scrimshaw and Shering. But going back to the released players, shall we say, we're not surprised with Gary Cahill. Probably age didn't help him, and he didn't get into the side once Phillips signed for the club. So great servant he was, great in that unbeaten 15. I said we wouldn't have got promoted without him, Jon. But probably wasn't going to sign a new deal in the Premier League.
No, I think that's right, and I don't think that 15 game unbeaten runs happens without him. Obviously, he wasn't there from the very start. We did have special mention to Zeno Hudson Rossi and Chris Mepham, who were very much part of that initial stint before Gary Cahill came in and really helped secure that role. Once he got his injury, he had only one game out, maybe two, came back and just didn't look quite the same player, and then got that red card against Barnsley, and that was the last we saw of him before Matt Phillips came in and completely took that role. So, I think he would have been massive for the team behind the scenes. Obviously, going through a promotion season from the Championship isn't something that he would have done, I'm not sure, ever. Certainly not for quite some time. But having been part of a Premier League winning team, I'm sure he would have imparted a lot of knowledge and experience onto a lot of the younger players in the squad of how best to handle the kind of pressure that they would have definitely been under in that very tough run-in. So, undoubtedly an incredibly important member of the squad. I think going back into the Prem, 36, maybe 37. I think it's fair to say that I don't think he would have got much game time at all. So it's fair enough that he goes into whatever he is able to go into next, whether he carries on playing or decides to go into any other avenue that you do as an ex-pro footballer.
Big shout out to Gary Cahill, absolute world professional. Great effort last season. Thank you for your efforts. Maybe never say never for Freddie Woodman, Nat Phillips and Ethan Laird, but it's pretty much been confirmed by the players themselves that Todd Cantwell and Leif Davis will no longer be AFC Bournemouth players. Didn't quite work out for Todd Cantwell. Leif Davis never really got a good enough run, but he did have the odd spark where he did contribute. But those players, part of the promotion team, but won't play a part for Bournemouth in the Premier League.
Yeah, and a small shout to Morgan Rogers, who would have technically been part of the squad as well, because he wasn't able to go back in January to Man City for some reason. But we had options on Rogers, Davis, and Cantwell. So it obviously clearly didn't quite work out. I feel sorry for Leif Davis particularly because I think, he could quite easily have had opportunities when Zamora was injured and just never got picked for whatever reason. I don't understand why, particularly as I think he had some pretty darn decent performances. Who can forget his first appearance coming on? No, his first start at right wing against Birmingham away.
That's right.
Um,
That didn't work out at all.
No, and to be fair, he just put in a good shift. That was all he could do in a completely unfamiliar position. But yeah, I feel harsh on him. Todd Cantwell, I think, whatever reason, in the end, he just wasn't what Parker wanted, which I think is a bit odd because surely you know exactly what you're getting from Todd Cantwell. But yeah, didn't quite work out for him. No goals, no assists, and then yeah, Rodgers obviously got his one goal and does get a medal, I suppose, for being part of the squad that goes up. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, most gutted about Todd Cantwell. I think that would have been an incredible signing if we'd been able to get the most out of him, but just wasn't to be.
Now, being back in the Premier League, we are naturally going to be linked with lots of players, especially a side that's going to want to try and compete and make sure that we don't get relegated. We're going to have a look at some players that are being sort of targeted by AFC Bournemouth on a daily basis at the moment, early on in the transfer window and pre-season. But there will likely be some outgoings, I reckon, Jon. I don't think we'll see many outgoings until Scott Parker's got players coming through the door. But maybe we need to keep an eye on the likes of Gavin Kilkenny, maybe Ben Pearson, Jack Stacey. Yeah, there's going to be a few there, maybe Chris Mepham, that could either see a loan or a permanent move out, with some of them also on short-term deals now, ending in 2023.
Yeah, I need to have a look and see who is on the last year of their contract, because that is quite an interesting one. That is sort of not quite the last option for the last time that we can go about trying to get a good value out of players, because obviously there is January, but if you see someone not playing a significant part, it is the best chance to move them on and allow them to get their game time as well. And you mentioned the likes of Mepham, and I think Stacey is someone that also can be mentioned in that just doesn't seem to be up there in terms of players that are going to get the most amount of game time for Bournemouth next season. Mepham in particular will want to be getting game time, as he now is in the World Cup in December. So he's desperate to make sure that he gets he's able to get starts, because at the moment I don't think he's in their strongest 11 even with a back three. So yeah, he'll want to move on. And other players, the likes of possibly Pearson, I think that would be a big loss. But he hasn't got much game time. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see who gets moved on. I don't think there's too many that we'll look to, because you need depth in the Premier League. But there's definitely a chance for some to get shipped out.
Right, shall we run through some players potentially linked with AFC Bournemouth? What we're going to do is just have a quick look at some of those players that are doing the rumours around at the moment. We'll also do a rating, Jon, out of 10, how likely you think this deal might go through. So let's look at the first one, which is Marcus Tavernier, currently at Borough, 23 years of age, contract until 2023, scored 5 goals and 5 assists last season. Interestingly, he's got a wicked left foot, very good from a technical point of view, and an area that maybe Scott Parker will be looking to score goals, set pieces.
Yes, there is that. I think he does take some set pieces for Middlesbrough. I think Paddy McNair takes a fair share of them as well. It's an interesting one, because most places that you see him linked with this will describe him as a right back or a right wing back or right midfielder. Transfermarkt has his main position as a left mid. But actually, in the last 50 games, he's played 36 of them in central midfield. So, he is a centre mid that can operate on either side as sort of like a wide midfielder or a wing back. But I think if there was one position in midfield that Parker will be looking to strengthen, and Joe Rothwell is probably one that comes under this as well, it's going to be the position that Lerma's taken up over the majority of this season, when Lewis Cook has taken that number 6 role, because Billing is given more license to go forward. That's fine. I think we all agree that's his best position. But the one to the right of that 8 needs to be more box to box. Not only does he need to be strong defensively, which Lerma is, and can fill in alongside Lewis Cook to make a double pivot, but needs to be able to get forward, get in the box, and get on the end of crosses or take shots from range and be a more creative influence and more goal scoring threat. And Lerma isn't that. I think he might have it in him, but generally he's got more of a defensive tendency. He has obviously got forward and got a couple of goals in the last few seasons, but he's much more of a defensive minded player. So I would imagine that's the position that I think we're looking to possibly fill, not necessarily to replace Lerma, but to someone to compete with him and have that more aggressive option there. And I think that's what Tavernier would provide. Or, as another player that we were obviously interested with in January, is Joe Rothwell, although he has about 5 dozen suitors based on what I've heard so far. So yeah, I think that's the one sort of midfield position that we're looking to, central midfield position we're looking to strengthen.
Yeah, Joe Rothwell's also out of contract, so he is very much in demand. Jacob Tanswell confirmed that on the video we recently did with him. Coming in at a number out of 10, Jon. 10 being likely, 0 or 1 being very highly unlikely. Marcus Tavernier to be in a Bournemouth shirt next season, out of 10.
That's a tough one. I think there's a decent chance we could go for him, but then I also think Middlesbrough also probably are going to be looking to strengthen and push on, and I don't think they want to lose one of their best players going into a season where they've got a very well respected manager who will want a lot out of their squad. So I'm probably going to give it a 4 at the moment. I think there is a chance, but I don't think it's a high chance at the moment.
I think there'll be other players potentially in front of Tavernier on Scott Parker's list. I'll go for a 3, and quickly a number for Joe Rothwell before we move on to the next potential incoming. Joe Rothwell out of 10?
I'd probably rate that one higher. I'd probably rate that one as more of a 6, just purely because I think there was a decent chance we almost got him in January. And I think that because of that, he might sort of favour not only going to a team that clearly has strong interest in him, but also now a Premier League team as opposed to a high-level Championship team. And I think any player will want to test themselves in the Premier if they have the chance. So I think that one's higher than Tavernier, certainly.
Fair rating. 6. I think a big question for him will be how competitive he'll need to compete with Philip Billing. That's probably what he'll want to know in the negotiations, but a lot of clubs involved apparently with Joe Rothwell. Right, next one. We do know this one quite well. Well, I say we know him quite well, Jon. He played 1 cup game for us, but he did have a half a season when he signed in January. That's Freddie Woodman. There are rumours to say that he's potentially looking at another loan back to Bournemouth. Newcastle are open to it. I've also seen Preston linked with him. The weird one with this, Jon, is I don't quite see why he would come back to Bournemouth, because I think it's going to take an absolute effort to get Travers out of this side. And I'm not wholly convinced about Woodman. I know he got 20 clean sheets in that season for Swansea previously, but I was told that was a bit deceiving. However, you do have to say that you're probably not going to get a better backup. But is that why you would want to sign, to be a backup? That's the thing that confuses me about this deal.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure he necessarily want to do that. I think I've heard rumours about Newcastle, but I think possible cold water has been thrown over that. Oh no, that was Dean Henderson. Sorry, no, I think they might still be interested in Woodman. So he is at Newcastle, isn't he? I'm thinking of someone else. I think it's Dean Henderson. But yeah, he's not going to get any game time at Newcastle anyway, so he might as well move on. I think he's coming into the last year of his contract at Newcastle. So I think Newcastle and Fulham have been two clubs that I've seen a link with. And you're right, I've seen Preston as well, who I think would probably be the best move for him because they've had Daniel Iverson on loan for 3 seasons in a row, I think. So they clearly want another goalkeeper on loan. If he wants game time, which he desperately needs coming into 25, 26, going to Bournemouth isn't the right move for him whatsoever. And I think if I was him, I would be looking at another decent Championship side to get that loan move to get that regular game time again, which he didn't get at all last season. So, yeah, I don't rate this one very highly at all. I think there are definitely going to be other options out there. Probably older heads that would be happier to be a backup might be a better idea, because Travers has had the season of his life, and he's only 23. So, he's not going to get pushed out anytime soon. This one's probably a 2 for me, I think.
Yeah, I'll go low as well. I was going to go a 2 or a 3, but I'd be very surprised if Freddie Woodman re-signed. Moving on then, another one. We know this player quite well from 2014-15, and that's Matt Ritchie. Been linked with Matt Ritchie quite a few times, actually. Age 32 now. I think he's looking to get out of Newcastle now, frustrated with lack of game time. Only 18 games apparently last season, 2 assists. Was a right winger for us in his heyday, sort of adapted to become a left back. You could see this deal as a left back as cover for Jordan Zamora, but again, I do struggle to see how Matt Ritchie gets game time. So, what's the difference?
Exactly. The only position he fills in for us really is a reserve left back and maybe at a push reserve right winger, but he won't have the stamina to play the pressing game that we need. So if he wants game time, he wouldn't come here because he's not gonna go ahead of Jordan Zamora at this point because Zamora is the future and Matt Ritchie is quite literally our past. So yeah, again, sentimental reasons maybe, but it better not be on a decent contract. And there's probably going to be scope for coaching afterwards because we love to have ex-players involved in our coaching and hierarchy. But yeah, again, don't see much in this one. I think possibly because he's an ex-player, I'll say 3 instead of 2, but I still see very low chance of this one.
I mean, I'm sure he'd be happy to come back. There is a nice house I think he has in New Forest that he never let go. So he's got a place down here that he enjoys. I think it comes back to wages as well, potentially, John. I think that might be a stumbling block, but don't really know. But I don't rate this deal highly at all, 3 or 4. So let's move on to a striker who's going to be in demand as well and was in demand in January. That's Ben Brereton Diaz. Blackburn, they've activated an extension on his contract because he was out of contract, but he is now got an extension on that contract until 2023. 22 goals last year, 3 assists, scored at Dean Court for Blackburn. A very good striker, but again, someone that might be heavily in demand.
Yeah, and Blackburn, as you're right, they've extended his contract purely so they don't lose him on a free. But also, at this point, he is close to at the highest value that he'll ever been. Obviously, the injury wouldn't have helped, but he's an absolute star in Chile, and he has also scored over 20 goals last season, certainly 22 at least. I think he hit. So as much as he's only got a year left on his deal, Harry Wilson only had a year left. He went 12 million. And if anything, he's more proven than Diaz is. But you'd certainly imagine it's going to be at least 12 to 15 million to get him. And Blackburn definitely looking to sell. The thing is, I'd say is sorry, carry on, Kirk.
Would the board pay 12, 15 million for a striker when you've got Dom Solanke and Kiefer Moore?
Well, this is the thing: is he necessarily a lone striker? Because I don't think he is. I think he'd play well in a 2, but he's mostly played off the left. For Blackburn as a left forward, arguably left winger. And what we do need is competition with Anthony. And with the height and strength and pace of a player like Diaz, he offers something different in that role, which Anthony can't do. And obviously, he's even more accomplished as a goal scorer. So I would encourage this one. I think he provides a little bit of versatility because he could play as a central striker and provide backup to Moore and Solanke, but is better as a competition and possibly even as a starter, as much as I do rate Anthony in left wing and provides a different option for us. The cost is a stumbling block, but you do need to spend a bit of money. And if it turns out to be a £15 million left winger, then I think that's a good option. However, if we're trying to sign as many players as rumours say we're trying to sign, then it's a difficult one. This one, I'd still rate this as maybe 6-7. I still rate this as a really decent chance of getting this one over the line, and I think it would be a good deal. But I could just as easily see us walk away from this one.
Yeah. I mean, I see 6-7 as potentially we're definitely having a conversation about this deal, and it's what the deal looks like and how much money you're talking about. And as well, it is a sort of punt on Diaz being able to cut it in the Premier League, but he's done it at international level. So you're going to pay top dollar for players that are going to score goals, though, aren't you, John? So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go along with your rating there of 6 or 7. Right. Another winger Callum Styles, who was highly rated with podcasters I spoke to at Barnsley. They got relegated. Only 3 goals and 1 assist for Callum Styles last season. Barnsley weren't great though. Contract 2023, age 22. I suppose a good part of this type of deal is that he's at Barnsley or in League One. So he's probably going to see this as a really good opportunity for him.
Yeah, I just see this as a player that hasn't necessarily shown that he could make that step up. I mean, don't get me wrong, Barnsley did very well the previous season, not last season, obviously.
Yeah.
But, he's decent, don't get me wrong. And, he came on against England when, again, for Hungary just the other day. But the thing is that he is a utility player because he's played in quite a number of positions around the central midfield. He's also played a left wing back in their system in a back three. The thing is, we don't play with a back three for pretty much. We played back four basically the entire season, and there isn't necessarily a spot for him in terms of. I don't see him as a left back, and in midfield, he's going to be the last option behind every other player. I don't see him really as capable of making that step up yet. Not someone that's shown that. Admittedly, you could argue Diaz hasn't, Rothwell hasn't, but I think it's a slightly different in that Barnsley side in terms of that being sort of like a one-hit, very much one-off thing. So, yeah, this one is much lower on the rating for me, back down to a 3.
Yeah, I'll go for a 2 or a 3 as well, and I think he'll be very low on a list of transfers. Another attacking player in the Championship, though, a lot of Bournemouth fans, Jon, speak highly of this one, and that's Antoine Semenyo. Again, 22 years of age, contract at Bristol City until 2023, 8 goals, 12 assists. I also put him in a similar bracket to the Luton striker, Adebayo. So, yeah, these are good potential players that you could snap up from the league below.
Yeah, definitely. Semenyo is an interesting one because, I don't know too much about him. I obviously haven't watched much of Bristol City, but I know that he's incredibly highly rated. And that attacking triumvirate of Bristol City last season, I think, went somewhat under the radar as to how good they were attacking-wise, and particularly towards the end of the season. So a young player, still very much moldable, attacking midfielder, I believe. So he'd probably be more in the Billing position. So, he'd be a good option, definitely. I think he certainly wouldn't be a mainstay, he wouldn't be a starter, and he'd be one for the future. And considering the position that we're in as a club that are just like going to be holding on for the first couple of seasons in the Prem, he would be fantastic in the Championship if we went back down. I would be very much behind this signing. I think it would be a really good one. Do I think we'll get him? I'm not so sure about that one because I think he is very sought after. He's very highly rated, and I don't think Bristol want to let him go. But actually, I don't know whether he's at the end of towards the end of his contract or whether he's a free agent at this point. But yeah, I'm on the fence. Right, so he's coming to the end, so they might want to be looking to cash in at a decent period. I'll just stick with a 5 on this one. I think I'm not sure either way, and I think there is a chance, definitely, but I'm not committed to this one at this point.
No, agree with that one as well, because I think there'll be a lot of clubs interested, so it'll be battling with other clubs on a deal like this. Right, the last name I've got for now, because it's going to be a busy pre-season, there's going to be lots of names doing the rounds, as I said earlier on, but Nat Phillips, he said he enjoyed his time at Bournemouth, age 25, 17 games for AFC Bournemouth when he signed in January, part of 8 clean sheets, contract at Liverpool though until 2025. I love it how we get promoted to the Premier League, Jon, and Liverpool go, yeah, you can talk about Nat Phillips, 15 million. It's just like an automatic reply from Liverpool. This is where I think is going to be the issue, because I do think Phillips got better, especially in those last 3 games of the season. He was very good alongside Lloyd Kelly. Would I pay 15 million? Not sure. Jacob Tanswell said he wasn't convinced by 15 million, probably 10 million max. And then you've got to ask the question, are there other defenders similar to Phillips that you could get for £7 million less? Is it going to be the money? Because I think Parker would like to sign him. It's just what deal we get him for.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, as I made the point about Harry Wilson being 12 million, and I think that Nat Phillips is not really anywhere near the proven level that Harry Wilson was. Having said that, Harry Wilson was in his last year of his contract, and Phillips has got 3 years, I believe, left on his. So that's where the money's coming in, is they want to recoup that money there that they've invested in him. And yeah, 15 million. I think that's really pushing it. I think 10 is probably what I would have thought. I heard 8, and I thought that would have been brilliant. But then, I could understand 10 would have been fine, and 12 would be really pushing it. I think 15 is definitely a no. I just think that there are definitely other options that you could look at, particularly from lower leagues. I think from the Championship, I think we should have gone in for Cal Naismith. I think that would have been a fantastic signing, but he got snapped up by Bristol City. But at the end of the day, we need defenders. Obviously, we lost Gary Cahill. Steve Cook went in January. We're assuming that Mepham is going to want to move on to get more regular game time, which leaves us with Lloyd Kelly and James Hill, I think, as our 2 centre-backs. So we need at least 2 centre-backs. And if we have to pay over the odds, I reckon that will get pushed for. I think there's still, even at 15, I think there's still a really good chance this will get done. Speaking of obviously defensive options, I'm amazed we haven't got linked with a left back yet. Callum Styles, you could argue maybe, but not really. We still haven't got linked with a left back. We've only got Jordan Moore at the moment, so we're really short on defenders. So it's very important we get as many of these done as we can, but we need to try and get as much value for money as possible. And is 15 million for a 25-year-old centre back that has admittedly played in a good Liverpool team both in the Prem and in Europe? There's an argument for that, but on our own eyes, there'll be a lot of different opinions amongst the Bournemouth fan base, I'm sure. So it's a difficult one. I still see this as probably an 8 in terms of chance of getting done. I think it's a very, very strong chance this gets done, maybe even higher than 8. But it is just going to be how much it costs to get over the line, because I don't think wages are going to be too much of an issue. I don't know what his most recent contract with Liverpool was like. But yeah, I certainly is just going to be that initial cost that's going to be the stumbling block.
Yeah, I don't think wages would be a problem. You've got to spend something in the Premier League to get better players. We'll just see. I mean, again, I think it is a deal that Bournemouth are going to really try really hard to get done. So this one could go all the way, and Jacob confirmed that as well. I mean, I'm happy to go for an 8, potentially a 9 to get Nat Phillips in a Bournemouth shirt again. Final thought on Nat Phillips, so John, a very, very minor thought. Is it easier to defend for Liverpool than to defend for Bournemouth in the Premier League?
Yeah, but I think it also is the thing that sort of when you make a mistake for a team like Liverpool, it sort of blows up a bit more, because it's 1 out of 10 defensive actions that you have to make, as opposed to 1 out of 40 that you'll make for Bournemouth, sort of thing. It's like when you make a mistake for Liverpool, it gets high. It's shown off a lot more because it's a bigger club, bigger fan base, bigger showing on the telly, bigger spot on Match of the Day. Whereas for Bournemouth, you can maybe hide a little bit more, sort of in the size of the team and the position in the table, but you are going to be under a lot more, under bombardment, as it were, a lot more when playing for Bournemouth than you are for Liverpool. So it's an interesting one, and yeah, there's arguments 2 and 4, I think, on that one.
Let us know your rating in the comments for some of those players that we spoke about. Also, tell us if you've heard some genuine rumours about players that are linked with Bournemouth this summer. There's going to be lots of names, I'm sure of that. And John will be back through pre-season. These will be regular content shows. And we spoke off air that looking at the squad, we know that Scott Parker generally likes a meaty squad. We look like we need a goalkeeper, potentially a right back, a couple of centre-backs, a left back, maybe a winger on the left-hand side. I mean, we potentially need 6 or 7 players again.
Yeah. So just another January 31st again. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll hear rumours about other possible options, and particularly maybe the odd loan move as well from one of the bigger teams in the division. Obviously, we've got a great relationship with Liverpool. We wonder sort of behind the scenes about possibly whether Morgan Rogers thing has harshened our relationship with Man City a little bit, possibly. But yeah, there's there's going to be deals we haven't even heard of today that are going to be in the works in some way or another by the time the transfer window opens. Which, of course, transfer window hasn't even opened yet, I don't believe, officially. So, so yeah, we've got a long way to go of this, and I'm just looking forward to pre-season and seeing what squad we've got.
And when we do done deals, you will hear about it on Cherries Red Army, and we will have a little bit of a game, having a talk about whether a deal will be a hit, a miss, or you're going to sit on the fence undecided. For this video, for this introduction, for this transfer show, Jon, thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Make sure you subscribe to Cherries Red Army, help us grow even further. We went past 1,000. Also hit the like button, and as I said, get those thoughts in the comments. That's our first transfer show of the season. From me and Jon, we will see you on the next one. Up the cherries.